listening to the 14th Source for all geeky and nerdy news and discussion, which means that you're listening to a podcast.
For all intents and purposes.
I am D. Bethel.
And I'm Andrew Asplund.
And we are your two overeducated, codependent nerd hosts, bringing you the things that we like to talk about, but filtered through inquisitive and critical lenses. In the episode for Friday, June 9th, 2023. Oh, Oof. Shit. Did we miss last week?
June, man. What a month. But we talked about the fact that, like, I got a bonus job. You know, we talked about everything else. It's just, this is not a good time of year.
You say bonus, I might say extra.
Well, yeah. It works the same way. Bonus, more like it.
Oh, damn. Yeah. I think I actually said this in the first? Jesus, I have to look back. No. At the end of May, we talked about, hey, June is going to be looking kind of packed in terms of just like stuff that life has given us. And that has proven true on every front.
Right. We discovered it real fast.
We discovered it last week, dear listeners. We literally texted each other like, oh shit, we recorded today, right? We're like, oh shit, we do. And then we didn't. And we tried for the next day and it just didn't work out. June is becoming a very packed month, like I said, of obligations and responsibilities outside the podcast. And so we're coming to you this week, dear listeners. We'll see if we get one next week. But literally between this week and I think the early 20s of June, Andrew and I are going to be in different places at different times with different availability of access. So
right, we actually we did the old like, oh, I'm going to be gone these days. I'm like, well, yeah. You know, of course you're like, well, Andrew, when are you going to be gone? Like, I'm like, oh, yeah. I'm going to be gone these days.
Like, well,
oh, those are not overlapping.
Those are June.
Right. So we are working on it.
Yeah, and this week especially when we're recording is very busy as well. Again, Andrew has an extra job. I have like house and life stuff I'm dealing with, stuff that we cannot control.
Right.
And so we're going to try to get another episode recorded, but it has to be this week. Recording 2 podcasts in a week is a lot to demand of anybody. And if not, you'll know what's going on. But
right. If you hear nothing but nothing for 2 weeks, you know why. Or if suddenly it becomes this weird, like, did Andrew, cut or Dan cut together like some weird, bizarro, half-assed right. clip show, you'll know why.
Exactly. So we're here now, and we're here to talk about something that we have both become enamored by.
Yes.
And that is a show called Barbecue Showdown.
Well, no, you mean American Barbecue Showdown, right?
Formerly the American Barbecue Showdown, no longer the American Barbecue Showdown, because I think if you say Barbecue Showdown, kind of implied.
What?
Yep.
We had one thing, America, and we got it taken away. And actually, I feel like, did we discuss this show previously? I feel like we have.
I think we did.
Yeah.
I think you had, and that got me to watch it. And I don't think we had any follow-up. I'm going to go to the website, though, and check.
Right, so this is Barbecue Showdown is a Netflix reality show. It's a competition. It's basically a cooking competition show that is, it's just people, amateur people that do barbecue showing up for a competition. I think that's 8 challengers, 8 weeks, 8 episodes. And it's just them doing barbecue with some, with judges, with whatever, the whole process. Like kind of what you expect from a reality cooking show. And, I think we both watched it the first season. And we're like, oh, this is a fun show. It wasn't great, but it was fun. And it was, I think, during the pandemic.
Right.
Which is French for bread. And
yep.
I actually think the first season was actually filmed before the onset of COVID. So There's been a delay. It's been a bit. But they did a second season, and it released on Netflix recently. Yeah, and we're watching it. And
right. In terms of structure, it's kind of Netflix's answer to like an American Great British Bake Off. Kind of.
But acknowledging that Americans don't bake for shit. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But we can put meat in a metal bin.
We will cook meat on fire.
Sometimes in the ground.
Yeah.
But instead of like that show is the GBBO, if you will, is built around 3 challenges. This tends to be built around 1 per episode because barbecue takes a long time.
Right. It's just like, oh, you have 9 hours to do this thing, like, or 6 hours.
They start an episode going like, hey, make Thanksgiving. And then I'm like, okay, you got 6 hours to do it. You bring up an interesting point because we have both watched season 1.
Yes.
And we both found it entertaining, if not groundbreaking or particularly, sticking in our memory. Right. Aside from like, oh, watching a show about barbecue is great. We're bringing it to you today, not just because we both have watched it, or Andrew has finished it, I believe, right?
Yes.
And I am getting very close.
You're getting there.
But there's something about the second season that actually shows a marked, I don't want to say improvement, but like a marked difference in terms of, I would say, tone, cast especially, and just overall vibe that season 1 didn't have. I genuinely think, and we shared this in our texts as you were kind of catching up and then surpassing where it was on the season, of like this season is genuinely great. It is really good television.
I mean, for a reality cooking show, like we're not trying to dethrone your favorite serialized drama, right? But
it is better than The West Wing.
Right. But it is like, I do watch not a lot of cooking shows, but a fair number, and this is definitely on that list of I like it so much, and maybe it's given me pause to think about my own life choices. But
wow,
we'll talk about that. But like, I think it's just a really good show, especially the second season. And there's reasons for that which I will talk about.
No, I think that's actually the conversation here, because in terms of just description and superficially, it's no different than really any other cooking show. It's
right.
They have some sort of contest that brings together the top 10 or 12 or however many people they started with. 8, there we go. And they whittle them away over the course of a series of challenges, right? And this is no different. Season 2 is no different. But for some reason, it is, and reasons that I think are very clear to me, and you might have your own reasons, Andrew, but like both of us kind of came away from the season going like, wow, this is actually like a marked improvement over the first season. But also just like, it's I love this show.
It's a really fun show. It's a great show. I mean, in the context of a show about people barbecuing competitively, right? In that context, I think it's actually really well done.
I think for me, just to kind of jump into, and I want to go first just because I'm going to say something that I've said a lot of times on this show, and it's kind of something I look for and I'm drawn to in a lot of entertainment, be it fiction or non. What this show does well is it exhibits, and I think the Great British Bake Off does this. I've talked about video games that I feel like allow me to exercise this idea. And even like the first major, I don't even know if it's a major, but the first reality show I really ever saw, which was with you at the house you lived at when we lived in town, Combat Missions. It's not Survivor. It's not, even though people do get sort of eliminated week to week, it's not a show about duplicity. It's not a show about backstabbing. It's not a show about alliances. It's not a show about strategy. It's a show about people doing what they love and what they're good at.
And the people around them supporting them.
Exactly. It's people doing what they love to do and doing it to the best of their ability. And someone has to be at the bottom of that tier. And that's it. It's not strategy. It's not veiled motivations. It's just like, this is what I'm going to cook. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Right. And I will say this to couple with that is that while some reality shows really have that, like, there are people who are like, oh, I'm going to backstab people or I'm going to do something that's going to harm my other competitors. This show exhibits, I would say, players helping each other or very competitors. So. The judges being somewhat supportive, right? Like, you don't see a lot of like, oh, you sucked at this. It's like, there's like the question of like, ooh, what temperature are you cooking for? Right? Like, ooh, you know, like, and they may not say, hey, babe, you may want to heat it up a bit, but like they ask those questions to kind of get to motivate, and you often see the competitors respond, which is, I think Great British Bake Off does that too.
Yeah.
But also just like, it doesn't, it has that very friendly, we're all in this together kind of thing that I think it makes me really like, it's fun to watch. No one's like, oh, I put poison in that guy's barbecue. Like, there's nothing like that.
Right. Or I went over, or more benignly, like went over and turned off their grill.
Right. It's actually quite the opposite. We see a lot of examples of like, oh man, hey brother, your shit's fucked up.
Right.
Let me help you real quick.
And I think it's telling that there was a cast mate on at the beginning of this season. I think her name was Cindy. She was saying like, everybody else is the competition and I've got the edge on them. And she was very kind of aggro in a lot of ways, as well as other things that got her eliminated early. But what I loved about it is like, whether she's a good cook or not, like her approach to the game, for lack of a better word, actually is one of the reasons why she got eliminated, because it didn't work. It turns into a show, I think, completely separate from the actual purpose or premise or pitch of the show, into a show about community. Mm-hmm. Despite the fact that it's a competition show, despite the fact that people get eliminated, that really what it does. It makes the show a celebration, in this case, of barbecue and the diversity of how things can be barbecued. We have contestants that are out of their element or who are very non-traditional, that are succeeding in some areas, failing in others, but get the opportunity to try and try again. And like you said, I think specifically get the opportunity to work with people that are not from the same background, to work with people from different skill sets who, though may perhaps not be as traditionally educated as them, have much more knowledge in certain areas of barbecue, in this case, again, to actually learn and improve as pit masters, if you will, which makes it, which gives it that special edge that makes it something that's fascinating to watch. And it's less about who goes home and going like, oh, I can't wait just to see these people do their thing again.
Yeah, no, definitely. And the struggles are not, oh, that, someone hurt this person or someone made some choice. It's like, hey, you tried something that wasn't the best move, right?
Yeah.
Which does happen through the end of the show, right? Like, oh, maybe you shouldn't have done that thing. But it becomes about that person, that competitor making a choice that wasn't the best, as opposed to like, and honestly, to see the other competitors being supportive of them, right? Like, hey, don't worry about that. I mean, I think it's actually the first episode, I think, where you see, maybe the first or second, where you see someone, T-Bone, or Big T. Sorry, Big T.
Thank you, Big T. Thyron
have a moment where things don't go well, and to see one of the other competitors be like, hey man, take a breath, like give him a big hug, like you'll get through this. And first of all, I'd say, and to see that turn into like a weird show friendship, but also just the idea of like, hey, it's okay. Like, don't, you're going to get through this. Which is not something you always see in these competitive shows, right? Because they're always competitive. I want to get the big money.
Everybody's just an obstacle. Yeah.
So I do, that's one aspect of the show that I think is actually, it's great. And I think they really doubled down on it. And I will say that I think they probably make this, they say this, and that's why it comes to mind. But they're like, barbecue is not, it's a cooperative activity, right?
Yeah.
You are going to cook food. It's a communal experience. It's something we do together. Yes, I get that we have barbecue competitions, but also like, I think in the first season, they did a pig roast.
Yeah.
That was like, oh, this takes 16 hours or some crazy thing, right? And they're like, you need a friend, right? You need someone to help you. So they brought in someone who'd been eliminated early on. And that kind of idea of like, hey, it's still a group experience. Cooking meat on the fire is something we do together.
I'm trying to pinpoint, without actually going back to watch the first season, not that it's bad, but like, I don't know what it is. Have you been thinking about that? Like, why are you connecting with season 2 more than season 1?
Absolutely.
Because don't forget, season 1 had personalities on it. They had boat
shotgun. I don't remember.
They had shotgun. They had grubs.
They definitely had some competitors. So I'll actually say, when this season started, I had to take a beat and say, like, wait, was Michelle Buteau always the host? So Michelle Buteau is a comedian that is the host of season 2, and also she's the host of Netflix's The Circle.
Oh.
So I suspect that they realize that she's just good at being the voice of these shows.
Right.
So they brought her in to be part of it, and she's there, like, you know, on set doing the thing with them. I do definitely think that she probably adds more, because like there was a discussion as we're watching it at home. We're like, oh, well, she's a lot better than the guy they had last season. And I was like, wait, didn't they have 2 people?
Huh. Was it?
And like literally we had a discussion, like not an argument, but like, no, it's just one. And we looked, no, there were 2 people. They had 2 hosts.
There was a dude and a lady, right?
A dude and a lady. The idea that they were so mediocre that you forgot about them.
Yeah.
And I mean, with all due respect to them, like as performers,
Indeed.
but just like as viewers, we don't remember them at all.
No.
And I think that was an important choice, right? Not only was it emphasizing, also that I think they cut a lot more. Like I will say, having watched the whole show, when they have the judges commenting on things, it's almost like, wow, everyone did good, right? Like they always the commentary that the 2 judges, which is I forget their names, Kevin Bloodsoe and
Barbecue Queen,
right? But anyway, these 2 barbecue people, they really emphasize the things they say that are good. Right. Now, don't get me wrong, the Barbecue Queen, I love that they actually have her like with kind of her, I say this respectfully, she gets kind of her like
Melissa Cookson,
her resting bitch face kind of thing, where she's like looking like competitor, like whatever the person's name is, and you're like, ooh, and then she says, "This is the best thing I've ever had."
She says that a lot this season.
She does, right? And it's
like kind of undermining your authority at this point. You better slow down with that.
But it always leads in with like she's going to say something awful.
Well, it's so funny. Like the episode I just watched, I think it was episode 8, has my personal favorite, Big T, Thyron. Although I love all the cast that's there in the final 4. She says, Thyron, she holds up his pork loin that he cooked, and he just starts breaking down. He's like, I'm sorry. She's like, tell me about, what did she say? She asked, are you happy with the smoke on this pork? And he's talking, and then like, why does he sound weird? I'm like, oh, he's actually about to, like,
he's upset because
he's upset. He's gonna get emotional.
He did badly.
Because he's like, I'm talking to Melissa Cookston, the barbecue queen, and she is not happy. She saw the flaw that I thought I could hide. And he's like, I don't want to say this to you. And it's just so earnest and pure and collegiate that is like, he's not upset that he's going to lose a competition. He's like, I could have done better. Right. And then she turns around, she's like, you shouldn't second guess yourself because this is the best pork loin I've ever had.
I don't think she says that, but
no, but pretty close. She's like, it's really good, right?
So yeah, that kind of stuff I think makes it a show that is not as stressful to watch, right? Like it's not like people backstabbing, people doing whatever.
That's a really good observation. Yeah,
it's just
the lack of stress. That it's just about people doing the best they can do.
There is stress. There is stress.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
there's tension, I would say.
Whoever's thing, like, it definitely in the last 2 episodes, spoiler, they have some moments where like, someone made a bad choice. Like,
oh, no.
In terms of, they tried to do the thing, like, they pushed too hard, right? They flew too close to the sun. But that's the energy. It's I tried too hard to be really good at this, rather than someone kicked me in the dirt,
Right.
The stress, the emotions are, I tried to do the coolest thing ever and it didn't work out.
Right. And I think there's one character on the show. Again, we're not going to spoil anything. I guess we should have said that up front because we want people to watch this. This is actually a really good time. If you're looking for something to watch this summer, if it's too hot outside. Yeah, very casual, a lot of tension, but a lot of fun, a lot of people just doing great stuff. If you love the Great British Baking Show or Bake Off, whatever you want to call it, this is a great show to consume. We've talked about Big T a lot because he's the best. I don't know where that goes. Andrew, do not say anything. But I think one of the most interesting contestants on the show is a character named Logan.
Yes.
Which is interesting because he was like, he didn't remember like about 5 years of his life because he was stuck in the wilds of Canada. And he's like, I lost all my memories and now I have these metal claws, but I want to become
that's a different Logan.
What?
Yeah. That's a different Logan. You're thinking,
oh. Yeah. Never mind. I don't like this show. But Logan's an interesting character. Tell us why.
Well, because he's a sous chef. Mm-hmm. He's a professional chef who cooks professionally in the kitchen. And I will say, if you watch the first 2 episodes, you will automatically conclude that he works in a professional kitchen.
Yeah,
because he always has stuff like they make some announcement and you'll hear him yell "heard," right? But he's a chef who picked up barbecuing. Like is something he was interested in. He talks about it, I think, in the last 2 episodes, actually, where he started doing where he did his first big barbecue. But the idea that he wants to do that, and his whole goal is to show that barbecue can also have like the kind of fancy dining aspect.
I like it.
You can make
high and low art. Yeah.
You can make the fancy food with the really great barbecue.
Yep. Yeah, it's weird to think that here's a guy on the barbecue show who in his day job is maybe often thinking about Michelin stars, right?
Right. And not just for the tires, right?
But
yeah, it is, and I think that's the kind of stuff that's fun, right? And also I'll also say that what I like about it is that, he acknowledges he doesn't know how to do certain things. Mm-hmm. But so do actually all of them. They say and I compare this to another cooking show I really love, which is Iron Chef, where there it's a lot of expertise. Here it's actually they'll be like, I don't really know what I'm doing with this cut, like I'm gonna do this barbecue or this gadget that I've been told to cook with,
Right.
I don't necessarily know how to use it. I'll do my best. And I mean, with some comical results. I'll say the finale, which Dan has not seen, has especially one of the contestants do something where you're just, literally they even say he or she is undoing the thing that we gave him or her.
Oh wow.
You're unwinding the gadget or whatever in a way that might be questionable, right? But it's fine because it still makes the meat, Right.
Going back to kind of what I love about the show is that we see often the judges, because they cut to the judges during the cook because there's so much time to fill, right? Mm-hmm. And they're like, I don't know why they're waiting so long to do this, or I don't know why they're doing that to this cut of meat, or I don't know why they're doing this first. And sometimes it fails, but what they're commenting on is people using their sort of the knowledge they've codified over their lives of just doing barbecue and problem solving, to the fact that the best parts are when they do something that the judge is like, what are you doing? And then to have the judges get it and go, damn. Or as Melissa Cookston would say, this is the best blah blah I've ever had.
I do love the idea that apparently she's not had a lot of great barbecue.
Apparently she's very bad at it. I shouldn't say that. I feel like she has a cadre of assassins that's going to come for me if I say shit like that.
And it's fun to see that, right? To see the kind of...
There is an expertise, right? Yeah. It's just not, necessarily certified expertise. It's a lot of it, especially when it comes to barbecue, is just kind of learned by doing, you know.
Yeah, no one here has a doctorate in barbecue, right?
Not yet. There's only so much we can say about the show without going into details, and so we don't want to do that. But watch, if you need a show, watch, please. We're not sponsored. I would love to be. I don't know what that would come with. Would it come with free barbecue? I'm not sure.
Which then brings me to my original comment about what the show made me realize is that if I had a house with space for it, I now realize I might want to get into barbecue. I don't. I live in an apartment in Seattle, but it just to see in the process of yeah, man, I could go and buy too much meat and then do the. I mean, every time. Well, some of the things I will say this because he does it multiple times throughout the show. When Thyron goes on about his grandpa's mop sauce.
Yep.
The first time you're like, what the hell's a mop sauce? And then I'm like, oh, that sounds great. And actually, I do want to say this show. The reason why I actually really like it as a cooking show is they do have the cutaway of what the fuck does this mean?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like when
Yeah,
they
yeah,
say
yeah.
something, if you don't know, they're like, actually, a spatchcock is when you cut turkey or other bird in half and blah, blah, blah. Or a mop sauce is what you mop on the meat while you're barbecuing it.
Right.
That kind of stuff is also cool because for me, it gets me into it. I'm like, oh, I'd love to make a mop sauce and then use it. Right. I want to, I want to get into this because you're telling me how it works.
Right.
In a way that's not, demeaning or whatever, right?
There's, I think, maybe an aspect of it, not to get too like cultural critical here, but like, obviously barbecue was not a new type of cooking, but as was indicated by the title of the first season, like it does seem to be particularly American. Obviously, there's a lot of very famous and well-regarded non-American barbecues out there, but America being quote unquote a younger country, like I guess I'm comparing it to like the Great British Baking Show, like, oh, today we're making blah de blah, which was created in the 1300s in France. I'm like, well, okay, that's great. I mean, it's interesting. Like, I love history, but like,
no, it has a lot of Americana to it. Although it also does. I mean, I think the previous season actually did have one where they had to choose one of these 3 international barbecue styles. Right, the first season did, and this second season does feature. In an episode that Dan has not seen yet, something that's very distinctly like, hey, you have to do a thing that's much more from another country.
Interesting. That's cool.
And because the idea of like spoiler for the fans at home, cooking meat on fire is in fact, while we have a tradition of it in the United States, mostly in the Southeast, but also we'll talk about San Luis Obispo. But there's also there are styles and in things in very iconic traditions around the world, which they can do. They can talk about like, while yes, most of these people are coming to this from an American barbecue tradition, to say like, hey, you have to make an Argentine, asado, or you have to make a Brazilian. Whatever the hell they put meat on sticks, they can do these things, and that's like, oh wow, it's different than what they normally do, and that's cool.
Yeah, that's the other thing I guess we should talk about. Like,
name drops our town in the first episode.
Yeah, as we said, one of the judges, Kevin Bloodsoe. I mean, I want to introduce him as San Luis Obispo's own Kevin Bloodsoe, but I think he's from L.A., right?
He's from Compton, I believe. Yeah.
Right, and now he lives in Texas, I think, but he does say on the show that he lived in San Luis Obispo for a number of years. And this came up because, I have to explain everything, there's a contestant on the show named Eddie, who's also from California, and on an episode he wanted to make a California-focused dish, so he made Santa Maria-style tri-tip. And Bloodsoe was able to judge like the veracity of Eddie's cook.
Right.
Because he actually lived there, where that type of barbecue was created. So it was weird to hear our hometown get talked about so seriously on a show like this, and it got you and I into a long conversation. A conversation which actually brought up the fact that there's like a lot of California-based stuff that you were surprised to learn were considered, specialized or interesting or good. And you only learned that after you left California.
And for those that don't know, that California, specifically Santa Maria, Santa Barbara, really Santa Maria, San Luis Obispo, has a barbecue tradition that is kind of like, people talk about like, oh no, that's like I mean, they have a Santa Maria grill that's literally named after a town that's 30 miles south of San Luis Obispo.
Most famous because that's where the Michael Jackson trial was.
You're right. The idea that the idea of cooking tri-tip in this certain way.
Yeah.
Because tri-tip is a cut. It was historically, I guess, not popular in barbecue, but then a bunch of,
California,
basically Mexican American or Mexican adjacent fellas were like, well, let's do this thing. Let's cook this in this way. And now it's a thing that, like, for me, again, we grew up in San Luis Obispo. The idea that like every place had a tri-tip sandwich. I'm like, yeah, of course, right? And then to leave California and realize that's a California. That's not only a California thing. That's a very distinctly like. And once again, I realized like that is not the norm.
Right, I remember in New York, you're like, you know what, Dan? I thought leaving California, I thought Sierra Nevada was like some bullshit swill fucking Bud Light
that's on every tab, right?
And like, oh, why is it so expensive here? It's because it's a boutique brewery. I'm not boutique really anymore, but it's big.
Yeah. But yeah, same idea. And that's it's always fun to realize that while most of barbecue in this country is a very southeastern thing, and I always say that like it's very regional too, right? Like it's the idea that like every town or every state has its own barbecue
that they're very proud of. Yeah,
this little pocket of California has got a barbecue that barbecue like pros identify.
Yeah. Right.
And say, like, yeah, that is a Santa Maria or San Luis Obispo style.
And to see it on a Netflix show, right? It's super cool. Right? And so this little pocket of California and that little pocket of Seattle recommend this show wholeheartedly. And you should check it out. Or because we can't talk more about it or else we'll just start spoiling stuff, which would be bad for me because I'm not done with the season and definitely bad for you because you haven't watched it yet, in theory. Let me say this. I don't get hungry watching the Great British Baking Show. I do. I very much do watching the Barbecue Showdown.
That's the worst part. Is like,
that does look real good.
It's a barbecue. Like, where do we get that?
I also learned about the dark magic of smoke rings with this season for some reason. I just didn't.
Yeah, never understood what that meant. I
see Melissa just like staring at the meat. She's like, the smoke ring on this is beautiful. I'm like, I think I know what you're looking at. I think I do.
It was one of the little tips that actually showed up, and I was like, "Oh, that's what a smoke ring is."
The more you know about smoke rings. So, if you, dear listeners, have any thoughts about the topics we discussed this week, feel free to leave your thoughts as comments on the page for this episode at forallintents.net.
You can also post your comments or engage in conversations with other listeners on our Facebook page.
You can find us on other social media sites as well, specifically the places that Andrew and I frequent, which means you can find me on Instagram at dbethelcomics, and you can find Andrew on Mastodon at profounddark@dice.camp.
While you're at our website at forallintents.net, you can also take a look at our YouTube page, which you can find by clicking on the link in the corner that says YouTube. There you'll find our YouTube page, which where we do, in fact, simulcast our episode.
When we release episodes.
Every week. So if you do like YouTube as a means to listen to podcasts, please like and subscribe, or as the kids like to say, ring that bell.
We use 2 tracks of music for our show. One is called Disco Medusae, the other is called District 4. Both written and performed by Kevin McLeod of the Clan McLeod, immortal swordsman, graph paper enthusiast, and musician extraordinaire.
You can find his music and more at incompetech.filmmusic.io, and that's all licensed under the Creative Commons 4.0 attribution license.
If you'd like the show and like to help us out, the best way to do so would be to subscribe to the show using whichever podcasting service you happen to use. What would help us out even more, though, would be to leave some sort of review. Whether a text review or using the proprietary metric will spread the word to new potential listeners to the magic of algorithms.
Algorithms.
I have a question for you, Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
How do you live without trailers?
I don't have a car, so I don't really need a trailer.
Well, no, movie trailers. How do you live without movie trailers?
I don't know if you know this. They're on the internet.
Well, no. I should have said. Okay, I said that wrong. The next Hayao Miyazaki film, which is called How Do You Live, which is supposedly his final film, which he said that before, is getting some traction in news media because they have released a poster for it, but it's been announced that they're going to be releasing no trailers. This is a quote from The Hollywood Reporter in an interview with Hayao Miyazaki. There'll be no trailers or TV commercials at all, no newspaper ads either. An interesting tactic for a person that needs people to see the movie.
Well, I did see an article on the internet about that.
Oh, yeah?
That
Go on.
Devastated Hayao Miyazaki decides not to publish any trailers for new film after realizing it's identical to Morbius.
That sounds like that's where was that published again?
Harddrive.net
yeah.
Which is a very factual satire.
Yes, just like the.
But it's just funny because it did feel like. For me, it's just like, okay, that's why he doesn't want to publish it. And I love they get the image of him with his hands on his head out of frustration, and they go like, oh man, this whole story, and it's like he describes the story of Morbius, like, who'd have known it's the same as this movie?
The original title, when translated from the Japanese, is It's Morbin Time. No, it's a weird flex. It feels like they're saying, well, it's got the Ghibli name and Miyazaki name on it alone. That's all you need. Maybe. We'll see. Like I said, if it's his final film as he says it is, then he doesn't care how well it does.
And I do suspect that a lot of people will see it anyway because,
absolutely.
It's bound to be, a Miyazaki film, right?
Yeah. And we're also talking about two very different markets here. We're talking about the Japanese market, where he is basically Walt Disney. We're talking about the American market in another way, of which actually I wonder, like, when the movie is getting released over here, are they going to adhere to the same ethos, right? Or are they going to be saying, like, here's a poster, here's a trailer, here's TV ads, here's newspaper ads? I mean, if newspapers existed in the United States. But it's interesting, and you know what? In a way, perhaps genius, that's a better way to get attention on a movie than maybe just doing another trailer, another poster, another newspaper ad. Who knows? I'll probably see it at the very least.
Well, and I would say that is kind of a closing comment on that, that it's probably more representative of a change in just the whole business.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
The idea that some people just are not going to go to the theater, period. And some people are going to go to the theater no matter what, right?
Right.
It does kind of create the realm of, like, who are you advertising to?
Right. Which is incredible, saying that if this is a really forward-thinking kind of advertising approach, a modern-thinking advertising approach, that it came from an 82-year-old man.
Right. Well, and again, it may just be that he's grumpy.
So until the grumpy 82-year-old in your life makes bold and forward-looking decisions, dear listeners, that was a mouthful. I'm D. Bethel.
And I'm Andrew Asplund.
And for all intents and purposes,
that was a podcast.
Believe it or not, we got one done in the June. Wow, I just spelled Tuesday completely wrong.
Tooo.
No, I spelled it number 2. Like, not with the. I spelled out the number 2.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
But hold on.
Butthold? What?
Butthold. Well, we have an episode title already. That's exciting. Oh, June, huh?
It's just a fucking week, man.
It's a fucking month, man.
Lemon. It's June 5th.
Do you skip the titles, bro? Do you skip the intro?
Well, first of all, it's Netflix, so they want me to.